We were emboldened by our God to speak the gospel of God to you in spite of great opposition. How does a man or woman become emboldened by our God? Where does the Christian's courage find its source? It comes from faith, believing that God is who He says He is and will do what He has promised He will do. Courage comes from believing that God keeps His word and is faithful. Courage comes from trusting God. The power and the strength we need will be given to us by the Spirit of God that dwells in us. But courage comes from faith. It is a decision we must make, a direction toward which we must set our faces. I'm reminded of a scene from a classic movie, meaning you probably haven't seen it if you're under the age of 30. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the second Indiana Jones movie, because Temple of Doom doesn't count, where Indy must take a leap of faith across a chasm. He's following the special guide, and it says he has to take a leap of faith, and he gets to this giant chasm, and there's just this giant gap he can't cross. And he realizes that the secret to solving the riddle is he has to actually step out and commit. And then when he does, this bridge suddenly appears as soon as his foot hits it. And courage is like that. We must exercise faith. And when we do, we find that God has provided the strength and the power that we need. But if you're waiting for the strength and the power to show up first, you'll never take the leap of faith. You'll never actually trust God. Because if you felt the strength and power before you needed it, faith wouldn't be required. The Bible puts it like this: faith is the reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. I can't always control my thoughts or my emotions, but I can always choose to control my actions and my words. And so even when I don't feel courageous, I don't feel full of faith, I can still act in courage and faith. I can still speak with courage and faith. I've shared it before. Even if what you have to do is say, okay, what would a person do? What would a person say who was full of faith in this situation? And then do that, even if you don't feel like that person. You can always control your words, and you can always control your actions. Those steps that you take might be taken with some very wobbly legs. Those words might be spoken with a quivering and shaking and very unconvincing voice. But when you take that step of faith, you will find the Lord guiding your step. When you speak those words of faith, you will find the Lord filling you with faith. When you put up that sail of faith, you will find the Lord sending His Spirit like wind to fill it. But you have to raise it. You have to do it in faith. We trust in the power, care, and faithfulness of God, and we depend on His strength. As Paul would tell the Ephesians, be strengthened by the Lord and by His vast strength. A lack of courage stems from a lack of understanding of who God is. How I long to see Christians who question the faithfulness of God get tired of putting their foot in their mouths, tired of saying, looks like God's not going to be faithful this time, only to be proven wrong every single time. I'll let the prophet Isaiah preach. Why do you assert, oh, my way is hidden from the Lord, my claim is ignored by my God? Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the whole earth. He never becomes faint or weary. There's no limit to his understanding. He gives strength to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Youths may become faint and weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. Trust in the Lord. Be courageous. Believe God and know that He is faithful. Make a note of this. Courage comes from trusting God and believing His promises. Courage comes from trusting God and believing His promises. That is why in Scripture over and over and over again, we are commanded, not encouraged, commanded, do not fear. Do not be afraid. Why does God command that? Because that fear and that anxiety stems from a lack of belief that God is who He says He is and that He will do what He said He will do. Courage comes from trusting God and believing His promises. Fear comes from a lack of trust and a lack of belief.